Mrs. Stanley, what do you folks do for a living?
We have trucks.
And what kind of trucks and how long have you been in that business?
Been in that business for 55 years.
We can't hear you. No, you got to put that up close.
55 years.
How many trucks do you have?
We have three.
Three. And what do you, what type of transportation are you involved in?
Right now we're dry boxes and refrigerated. We haul beer and wine, cardboard, but we've always hauled logs and lumber before.
Okay. And you operate in California?
In Oregon too.
Okay.
Mostly California.
Okay. Ms. Stanley, I'm going to direct some questions to you first. You were telling me the story of Mrs. Stanley. You were telling me the story of your history in trucking and your family history coming into it. Would you tell the board that, please?
Sure. If, according to C.A.R.B, I shouldn't even be alive. I should not even have any children, according to C.A.R.B. When my mother was pregnant with me, she drove a truck. She drove a logging truck. My dad, at 15 years old, went into the Army on his older brother's paperwork, was there 2 years, they found out that he was too young to be there because his older brother went to join and found out he was already joined. So they kicked my dad out, and when he became of age, he went back in, which my dad isn't the one that told me this story. My uncles did because they thought it was hilarious. But I couldn't figure out why he would go in twice, especially. And then through the years, I couldn't understand, why Martin Luther King did the marches he did. You don't want trouble, stay in the background. Well, now I understand. They weren't doing this for themselves. I'm not doing this for myself, and neither is anybody else here. We're doing it for our future children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And my husband's going to tell you more about what happened at the scales on the tickets that we got. But what scares me most is that C.A.R.B told him we will do whatever we want. Now, does that mean that C.A.R.B guy can come into my home if my great-grandbabies are there, which are right here? They are enjoying their grandparents' equipment. They love our trucks. Can C.A.R.B come in and take my little great-grandbabies and do what they want, like they do over in other countries? Can they do that?
Ms. Stanley, when you said you shouldn't be alive according to C.A.R.B, were you referring to the fact that when your mother was pregnant, she was driving a truck?
Yes, she was around diesel.
And she drove that truck on a regular basis?
Yes, she did. My grandfather and my uncles owned a sawmill in Sheep Ranch, California, Calaveras County. And it was a family operation. My uncles drove truck, run the mill, skin cat, did all of that. My mom drove truck.
Okay. And so this is a family tradition.
Uh-huh.
And if you had to, in order to comply with the C.A.R.B regulations as they see them, what would it cost you folks to do that at this point?
In order to get the piece of equipment that I'm driving right now, if I bought new, it would cost me $182,000, and it would be a plastic piece of junk. I've got a truck. I've got a 93 Peterbilt. and I've got a 68 Peterbilt cavalry. And they run good every day. I get 6 miles a gallon. They pass the opacity test. And
Could you go back and tell me, for the court reporter's sake, could you go back, and for the boards, could you go back and tell me, let me ask you my question again. For you to be compliant with CARB and stay in the business, what would it cost you to replace your equipment? Give me the same answer you
in order to replace my truck and get anywhere near the equivalent that I have now, it would cost me $182,000. And it wouldn't even be it'd be a compliant truck, but it may run one day and it may not run the next day. Where mine runs every day, and I can depend on it. I don't have to have somebody with a laptop and a white vest try to figure out what's wrong with it.
What are your 3 trucks now that, what is the truck that you operate?
The one I'm running right now is a 93 Peterbilt with a 3406 cat engine in it. The one I usually drive is a 68 Peterbilt with a Cummins motor in it.
And both of those trucks are subjected to the OPAC tests?
Yes, they are.
And according to those, they meet the CARB requirement?
Way low.
Way low. What is the 3rd truck that you own?
The one my son drives, the 74 Peterbilt Cavalry.
And what would it cost you to replace all 3 of those?
In order to replace them to a new truck, to be anywhere near what we've got, you take $182,000 3 times.
Okay, so over $250,000.
And besides that, CARB will tell you, well, put a filter on this truck. They don't even make a filter that is compliant for a truck that's a non-electronic motor. I've got all manual motors.
Okay. And you and Mrs. Stanley, and Mrs. Stanley particularly, has indicated that you're of an age where you can't see yourself going into debt like that in order to do that. Is that right?
No, I mean, I'm 74 years old. I'm not going to quit, even though I should. But my dad always told me, never be a quitter.
Well, good. That's why you're here. Now, the test results, I'm curious about those, and I know that Mrs. Stanley has a file with the test results. I'd like for you to tell me what was the results of the last test that was run on your trucks. The last, is it OPAC test? Is that what it said? OPAC test?
Yeah. The last one was done, let's see, last week anyway. 3/11/15.
Good. What does it show? What percentage?
The highest percentage on there was 27%, and I'm allowed 40.
Okay, so CARB would allow you 40%, and yours is running at 27%.
Yes.
All right. What about now which truck is that?
That's the one I've been driving while the motor's out of the other one.
Okay. What were the tests for the other truck?
The truck our son drives is a 74 Peterbilt cabover, and he's allowed 55%, and he came in at 32.1.
Okay, so CARB would allow 54%, and the truck checked at 32.1.
31.5.
31.5, so you're down virtually 20 points less than what CARB would allow.
And the truck that I drive is a 93 Peterbilt with a cat, 3406 mechanical, and it is allowed 40%, and it came in at 19.2.
Okay, so you're at that
And it's
point,
been 2 years since it's been checked out by the mechanic.
and so that's a 21% less than CARB would require as their minimum. So the answer is yes?
They also told me, though, it doesn't make any difference if you're gonna be 0 or you don't run.
And they said you would be 0 or you won't run, even though their regulation says differently. Did they also say to you that if you, no, you said that the filter won't work on your truck. So they've just given you an ultimatum. Yours have to be 0% emission or you can't run them. The answer, did you get the answer? The answer was right. All right, Mr. Stanley, I would like for you to tell me, please, about the incident recently at the scales.
Well, it was 2 weeks ago now. I was coming south on 101 and the scales at Willits, California were open. I pulled in there and there's 2 CARB pickups there. And the red light come on, he says, pull to the right. And so I did. And this CARB guy walks out and he told me to pull my hood. And I said, no, I'm not pulling my hood. I pull it for him, but not for you.
And when you said him and pointed, who was that?
Well, that was Hildebrand, an officer from Lake County.
But a highway patrolman.
He was a highway patrolman. He was walking out towards me.
Go ahead.
And
Don't be scared. That's not CARB behind you.
well, I found out I didn't have to be scared of him because he didn't have a gun.
Okay.
Because I turned around to him because he said, we will do what we want. And I said, you got a gun? He says, no, but he does, pointing at the cop. And I said, okay. So when Hildebrand walked up there, he says, pull your hood, Loyal. And I says, for you or for him? He says, for me. He says, I want to check your front end. Well, I pulled the hood, he walks over, he looks down at the front axle, and he touches it. All he did was touch an airline like this. And while he's doing this CARB guy goes around, jumps up on my tire and on my frame rails up on top of my engine taking pictures.
So he actually went up on your equipment.
He climbed up on the frame and on the front wheel was taking pictures.
And I want to be sure that we overcame the squawk and we get this right. You had not invited him to do that.
No.
You had not given consent to do that.
No, the only one I gave consent to was the officer. He told me to pull my hood because he wanted to check the front end.
Okay. All right, go ahead. What happened?
But then the officer just stood there and watched it. And I started to walk over and he said, well, just stand back.
The officer told you to stand back. And what did the CARB gentleman do?
Well, he told me I was illegal. I didn't have a filter and I had, according to this, I tampered with the EPA sticker on the top of the motor. Well, it's the only sticker that was ever on it that I know of. It was on it when I got the truck. And
you hadn't done anything to remove it or tamper it or move it?
No.
You didn't have any reason for aesthetic reasons to move the EPA
No.
marker?
I don't know whether it's an EPA marker or not, but it's a typical cat marker that's on, it says Caterpillar right on it.
Okay.
It's got all the numbers and everything.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
And then he went inside and he wanted me to meet out this paperwork here and wrote me 2 tickets. One for tampering with the EPA sticker and one for not having a filter. But then he put the tampering on both of them.
Okay, so you charged twice with tampering?
Yes.
What can I? Is it a complaint or a fine form?
It's a citation, says right on it.
And the yellow one you have there, what is that citation? Is it a California or federal?
California.
And what's the other one? What's the white one?
Well, They're all California. This is a copy.
Okay, all right.
And this yellow one here, this pink one and the yellow one under it are the same.
So he didn't charge you with two separate tamperings?
Yes, on the, yes,
he
there's
did.
tampering on two of them.
Okay. Did he indicate to you what the fines would be?
Not at that time. I got it when they mailed it to me later.
What were the fines?
The one fine is we pay $1,000 penalty now, or by March 22nd, it'll be $1,800 fine. And if that doesn't clear it up, in order to clear it completely, we have to be completely compliant by the 22nd of March, which means we either have to have another truck or put a filter on all three of our trucks. And they said if we don't become compliant, they can go back to the first of the year and charge us whatever they want for a day for all three pieces of equipment every day.
Okay, now I want to go through this, and I want to be sure I've got this straight. When you got the ticket, you went in to CARB to find out what the fine was.
No, I didn't go to CARB. I didn't do anything.
Okay,
I waited for them to send me,
okay. All right, so they sent you the papers
yes,
that show what your fine is. And I'm
Yes.
going to get you the papers in just a minute, because I would like to make copies of those and offer them into the record. And what you're told on those is that the fine right now is $1,000.
on one of them. And the other one was,
I had them out yesterday. I don't know where it went.
anyway, it come to $1,800, a little over $1,800 for the two of them.
Now, is that today? If you went in today, it would cost you $1,800?
Yes,
All right, and then if you don't go in today to pay it, when does it increase in amount?
after March 22nd,
And what does it increase to?
$800.
So it would be $2,600.
Yes,
And then, after what date must the truck be compliant?
by this March 22nd.
Okay, so on March 22nd, the fine goes to
20,
$2,600, and your truck has to be compliant with a filter.
yes,
I understood the filters wouldn't go on these trucks.
they don't.
So in other words, what they've told you is, you've got to go in with new trucks.
Either new ones or 2008 or newer. And a 2008 or newer will only get me up to 2020.
Okay,
And if I go to a 2010 or 11 and newer, then according to CARB, of course they change daily, it's good forever.
all right. And then under what circumstances do they say they could go back to January the 1st and start charging you a fine every day?
Because my trucks are not compliant and I didn't have them registered with them.
Okay,
So they can go back to January 1st of this year and charge me that $1,800 a day if they want it per truck.
okay.
Whatever they want.
Plus the fine for not being in compliance.
Yes,
And that's the one that can be whatever they want.
yes. And this is one reason why I didn't, when I got the ticket, I didn't call CARB
Right.
and get excited, let them even think of it worrying me, even though it was worrying me.
I want to go back to that scene at the scales now. You had further discussion with the CARB representative after he got off your truck, didn't you?
Yes, inside this scale shack.
And tell us about that discussion.
He just handed me the ticket. He says, sign here. And I said, I'm not signing it. And he says, I said, sign here. And I said, I'm not signing it. He had both of them down there. And the officer, Hildebrand, says, well, you don't have to sign it, but you will take a copy. And I said, I don't want a copy of it. He says, Loyal, he says, take a copy of it, just so you got a record. So I did, I took a copy of it, but I never did sign it.
And what, if anything else, did the CARB man say to you?
He didn't say that much to me, except he was...
How about your property?
Well, it says right on here that they can put liens on my property or do whatever they want.
Did he say that he could come on your property anytime he wanted?
He didn't say it then, no. But he had told me before they can come on my, because I have reefer trailers sitting on my property that have been there for, I use them for storage. And they've still got the units on them. They haven't had a battery in them or haven't had diesel fuel in them for 15 years. But he told me they could come on my property and write me a ticket for each one of those reefer trailers that are sitting on my property because they're not compliant.
What was your response to it?
I told them they better bring the Army with them.
And did he have a response to that?
No.
Okay. All right. Now, you said that on these papers, they say that they can take a lien against any of your other property.
I'm not sure where it says on here, but we've gotten paperwork from them before that that's what they can do.
Okay, well, we can look at that. Can we have those documents long enough to make copies of them?
No, you can have them.
Like the officer, though, I want to be sure you have copies of them. Do you have copies?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then if you give me copies, I'll give Ms. Stanley a chance to sort them out. I'd like to offer the board and offer in evidence, Mr. Chairman, the copies of the documents. Ms. Stanley and Mr. Stanley, is there more that you want to tell us about your experiences with CARB?
This is, other than here, 8-9 years ago, I upgraded all my reefer units on my trailers. Spent for $40,000, either putting filters on them or buying new motors for them. And right now, I only got 2 trailers that are compliant. The one I bought a brand new motor for in 08 is not compliant because it doesn't have a filter on it. And it's got less than 100 hours on it since 2008.
A 2008 engine with less than
100 hours.
Less than 100 hours, and because it doesn't have a filter, it's not compliant.
According to CARB.
But it meets the test, it meets the smoke test.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And like the other 2 that I'm using every day, they're 2002, but they've got a filter on them, so they're good for 1 more year, until January 1st of this next year.
Do you have any problems with that truck that has the filter on it?
I've got nothing but problems.
Tell us about that, please, sir.
Before we put the filters on them, they didn't use any oil. Use them, turn them on, they were good. And now I'm having trouble with filters all the time. Lights are coming on. It'll shut itself off. And I've called the manufacturer about the filter, and they said, let it sit for a minute, turn it back on, and forget about it. So that's what I did. So that's when I'm using those, if it shuts off, I just shut it off and let it sit for 5 minutes and turn it back on. But it shuts off, and if I wasn't there to watch it, I'd lose a load.
And how do you, would explain that, please?
Well, if the temperature got too warm in there, like I say, if that trailer was sitting and there wasn't somebody there watching it, of course my trailers don't sit except when they're in my yard, in my place. And so there's either me or my son or my wife is there. We know when a unit goes off. And if it don't come back on a little bit, there's something wrong.
Oh, and you're talking about the one that runs the engine so that it cools your refrigerator.
Yes, yes. Because they're on an auto start-stop. Unless we're a real specific temperature, we just put it on auto start, and it's got about an 8-degree variance. So it'll go off after it gets the temperature, and it may be off, depending on the temperature outside, it may be off for 4 or 5 hours.
I finally got what you were saying. My brother used to drive one of those and had to run it all night to keep it cold enough.
Well, I don't haul anything that precise that we have to worry about it. We try to keep it between 36 and 48 degrees.
All right, is there anything else, Mrs. Stanley or Mr. Stanley, that you want to add to your testimony? I appreciate you both coming so far. The story fascinated me in a strange way when I heard it, but with all the other things we've heard, it doesn't surprise me.
There's probably a lot of things that we'd like to say, but we're trying to be nice.
Well, it's, Ms. Stanley, is there anything else you want to say?
The only thing I'd like to say is that we've always been very, very proud of our equipment. And I'll put our equipment up against anything new on the road for safety, looks, you name it, I'll put it up. I'm proud of the name of Idaho Trucking. I had some other people I've talked to try to get them here today and yesterday, and they're afraid. They're afraid of CARB. They won't come because we went to Willows. By some slight chance, the back of my jacket got on TV. Within 3 weeks, we had CARB ticketing him. Everybody's saying, well, see what happened to you? If I go and they see me there, they're gonna get me next. They're scared. I'm scared.
Now, when you say you went to Willows, was that to the court proceeding?
Yes.
Where the California truckers sued CARB?
Right.
And your jacket on the back indicates the name of your company?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We put Vidoti on everything.
Okay, all
We
right.
put it on our arm. We are so proud of it. I mean, not him personally. He does.
All right.
Our son.
And then CARB did what after about 3 weeks?
We got our tickets.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So therefore, the people in our area are afraid if they come down here and they talk to you, they're next.
You're going to want to listen real closely to the radio gentleman who is on the air next as to what he suffered from CARB. Mr. Peters and I do want to assure you that if something happens to you because of this, you be sure and alert him or alert me, please.
Well, I've told my family and all my friends, if all of a sudden my truck goes off the road, you make sure that you get it investigated good because it'll be CARB. They don't play nice.
I'd like to say that if diesel smoke kills people, I should have been dead when I was 10 years old because I was raised in a shop in the wintertime and my dad was working on logging trucks. And in those days, it'd be raining outside and doors would be shut and you get so bad in there your eyes would burn, so they'd open up the doors at both ends of the shop, blow it out, shut the doors again and throw a tire on the old barrel stove and go back to work. And if diesel smoke is going to hurt somebody, there's an example back there that he's been in around it since he was born. And
that's your son?
That's my son.
What's your son's name?
Doug, stand up.
Well, Douglas Stanley.
That's my baby.
Anyway, thank you.
And how old is he?
51.
51 now.
Okay. Any questions for the Stanleys from the members of the board?
You know, I appreciate you coming in, and it's you folks and others like you is the reason why that the city of Reading, we started the coordination committee, and why the city of Reading is coordinating with trying to force CARB to coordinate, which we're going to achieve here. And with the different meetings that I and we have gone to with CARB, and their sheer, utter arrogance, just the sheer, utter arrogance, and it shows in what this, I call them CARB cops, but the CARB cops do. And we just thank you for coming in and talking to us, and we need to keep moving forward in a direction to get this problem taken care of.
Well, we thank you for listening.
Well,
What can we do? What can you do to help us with these tickets?
with those tickets,
We have no money to comply, for one thing. What do we do next? Any idea?
Well, Mr. Peters and I will talk to you, and we might have some ideas for you.
Okay.
The board really doesn't, it's a fact-finding board, and they really wouldn't have, but we may be able to help you, so we'll talk with you later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for what you folks are going through, especially putting your lifetime into this. Just to clarify, CARB has their goals as set at 55 for one of your trucks, 40 and 40. Am I correct on those figures?
Yes,
And you're way under them,
you're way under them.
but yet they told you you're going to be 0.
This is what they want, 0 or you don't comply.
Okay, but how can they justify that to you when you're already way under what their goals are?
Their attitude is they'll do as they please.
You know, my blood pressure went up yesterday really bad when I heard a couple testimonies, and it's at that part right now. I just have an acronym for CARB. It's OOFC, and I'll say they're out of control. You can figure out the third letter. On the another question on here, on the threat. Oh, here it is. On the threat to come on your property, was that in writing or was that verbal?
What was that?
The threat to come on your property, to take to.
Did they come on?
You're right.
This was verbal.
It was verbal.
This was a couple years ago.
Okay, but did you have any witnesses for that?
No.
Okay, I'm not sure how all the sheriffs are. We have some constitutional sheriffs in Northern California who will not allow federal agencies to come on without going through them first. If I were you personally, I would file a complaint with the sheriff's department so it's on record. Okay, and then if something happens, then you can come back and say it was on file.
Well, see, I'm not trying to hide these trailers. I mean, they're sitting in a row in the reefer unit. They could park on the street and take pictures of them. It's not like I'm trying to hide them.
No, that's not the point. The point is that your public property, your home property, they're not allowed to just come on willy-nilly. And your sheriff should get some backing from you. If you have a sheriff, or I'm assuming you're in the county, or in the city of Hopland, if you have a police department, somebody should be protecting you from them. Of course, Smith & Wesson helps a lot too.
Thank you.
My family lived at the mouth of the Klamath for years. My dad was a gyppo logger and had a lumber mill. I can totally relate to what you're saying. But when you're talking about us being in the shed with all the, I hope CARB doesn't come and test me, because they'll use that as proof that it does harm you.
Hi, thank you for coming. I'm Stephen Bird. I'm a city councilman in the city of Dixon, just up the way here. And my question to you is, have you brought these matters to the attention of your local representatives, either a city council or board supervisor?
We don't have a city council in Hopland. It's just a rural town. If you blink your eyes, you missed it.
So you're a county
And
board
usually,
supervisor.
by the time you get to Hopland, you've had a couple glasses of wine, so you miss it anyway. It's not ranch country or logging country anymore. It's wine country. And over there, it's a bunch of pot-growing liberals, is what it is. And they don't want, nobody wants any trouble.
But you do have a governing body, a board of supervisors then for the county.
Yeah, but they're wanting people like us out.
I see.
They want trucks out. There's been some big trucking people in Ukiah, and there isn't any left.
Mendocino County is a...
Mendocino County. But the way I look at it is, CARB is going to force me to become a pot grower.
All right, you don't want to say any more about that, so we will talk later. I do want to thank you both very much for coming and offering your information. That'd be very helpful.
Yeah, very quick. I have two very quick questions. Obviously, this has been a generational business for you guys. So your inability to continue in that generational business, to you, would that represent a destruction of your family culture and heritage?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
And then CARB creating and enforcing regulations that do not allow you to use your assets and have depreciated the value of those assets, would that represent to you a regulatory taking of your property?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And not only that, but right now my business is growing because people are calling me because these other outfits are out there doing the job, but they call in all the time. My truck's broke down. The computer's gone on. I can't get there. Well, and then you've got a brewery over here that's got to shut down for a day because he doesn't have glass. They call me because they know I'll be there. One way or the other, my truck will be there.
I'm Gary Cadigan. I'm from the Reading City Council. Have you talked at all to Tom Altman, I believe is the sheriff of Mendocino County?
Yes.
He's a constitutional sheriff, and have you talked to him about this?
I haven't talked to him, no.
I would go and talk to him if I were you to, because the constitutional sheriff can go coordination also.
Okay, we're ready to go on to the next witness, but
Okay.
we will talk to you about this before you leave and before we go today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks, so much.